Hey, good afternoon or good morning. We're getting close here. We're gonna get started in a couple minutes. Just waiting for everyone to get in. I'm just taking attendance right now as people enter into class. Um, However you decide to take notes, or if you're just gonna follow my screen, or if you have the PowerPoint on or the slides on Canvas under chapter 22, 23, 24 module, you're welcome to just pull that up as well. Should be pretty close to that. Um, Shouldn't take me too much longer here. All right. To get class started, while I'm taking attendance here, what I want you to do is post one thing that you learned or found interesting from the lecture yesterday. Okay, post it in the chat function, please. All right, I think I've got accurate, up to date attendance here. Most of you, it appears, child labor, was something that surprised you, and I couldn't agree more. Um, Also, I think it probably, for a lot of you, probably made you realize how important alternative energy sources are, especially as our population gets larger right now. How we need to, again, continue to try to find alternative forms of energy that aren't coal related or petroleum related or natural gas, so that we don't run out of some of the necessities that we need. All right. I'm going to go ahead. I appreciate everyone's response. That was pretty good. I'm going to share my screen here and kind of just show you, kind of start off today's class with about where we ended, but show you kind of how the Industrial Revolution spread out of England. So this is kind of interesting. So if you look at this map on the screen, you're going to see in the green are areas that are heavily industrialized. You'll see in the pink then were areas where serfs were not emancipated before the revolutions of 1848. And so what you'll notice is places that remained primarily agricultural were way behind. You guys see that on the map? So look at Hungary, Austria-Hungary in the late 1800s. Hungary will throw like a faux revolution, and Austria will say, "Okay, we're sorry. We'll let you be part of our empire." And they're called the Austrian-Hungarian Empire after that. But we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into World War I. But if you just see this, I mean, even having been to Europe many times, like I have, I still find this interesting. You'll notice in Russia, at least the European part of Russia, there's only industry in St. Petersburg. And then you'll notice, look at what was the Holy Roman Empire that became Germany. Look at all the different manufacturing areas. Textile industries, iron, some coal mining, not a ton. And then if you look at Great Britain, it's just littered with large cities. That's what the red dots appear after 1850. Textile industries. You see Manchester, you can barely tell it's there because there's so much industry there and so many cities in such a small location. That's what we were talking about yesterday. So this map, hopefully it helps explain a little bit about where industry spread. Now, what's missing on this map? The United States is starting in the north to industrialize by 1850 as well. And that's obviously going to lead to the Civil War, as the economy between the North and the South are drastically different due to the fact that the Southern United States held on to slavery and the North became more industrial. And I think you guys probably talk about that in middle school, I'm assuming, a little bit. And you'll talk a lot more about it next year. All right, so the second half of the 1800s, the 19th century, was more focused on the technological revolution. And, you know, obviously a lot of people, you can trace the roots of almost everything we're using right now as part of that revolution. The fact that I've got lights on, the fact that I've got a fan on, the fact that I'm talking through a computer right here. I mean, all of that is, you know, a classic example of technology that has just been built upon since the, like I said, second half of the 1800s. Some of the more noticeable advances were made in the U.S. and Germany. You probably have heard of Thomas Edison before. And he will be the person that starts this company called GE, General Electric. I remember my brother-in-law used to work for them. They're one of the largest companies in the world to this day. Still around. And so not only do you have advances in, for example, light bulb or electricity, but you also have advancements in fertilizers, chemicals, which are going to lead to you know, more fertilizer being used, which helps more food being grown. And, you know, this is going to affect more rural areas then as well, as it just makes the ability to have more food, more corn, more wheat available. And also you can now use these and buy these in places like Mexico and Southern America, South America. You know, that today looks like things like Monsanto, or if you've ever heard of Bayer, they bought Monsanto, but they make this thing called glyphosate. Glyphosate is the fancy, or the non-fancy word for glyphosate is called Roundup. Some of you may have heard of it, but it goes into a lot of the food and products that we give to animals to eat as well. And it's highly controversial because there's been studies that show it can lead to cancer. But that's just a chemical, and the use of it is just a idea, that things continue to improve. Um, Also, then, is you start to have kind of more, I would call it vertical. I'm gonna ask. I have an econ teacher in the room. I'm gonna figure out what the exact word is. What's it called when it's vertical integration? Yeah, yeah. But what's the word for that? Vertical integration. I had it right. What's it called? Vertical merger, which basically is what Rockefeller and Carnegie did. Okay, I was told Carnegie did it, and that's where you buy, as a company, you buy all of the stages of the manufacturing process, the distributing process, the mining, and basically you create massive, corporations, cartels, trusts, etc. But what you end up with are these huge companies um, that kind of combined with what we talked about yesterday with labor conditions, can basically do whatever they want to the labor sources because they're the only ones in the business, and so that's why it leads to unions and all that type of stuff, which we'll talk about, and changes in the government. But corporations and trusts are a huge thing to this day. I don't know. Again, I told you guys Facebook and Twitter were in front of the Senate yesterday because there's a lot of talk right now in the United States and around the world of busting up some of these companies like Amazon and Google that have a monopoly on the market, because they've done exactly that. Google's tried to avoid it, but they're a huge corporation. They have a parent company called Alphabet now. They tried to do this because they don't want to get caught in the same rut that these huge corporations did in the late 1800s. Because what happens is if you get too big, there's no one that can basically police them at all. So I'm rambling a bit, but this is stuff I find really interesting, obviously, and very applicable to our world. Second industrial revolution, also telephones, the telegraph. This has evolved so much, but the ability to send communication across the sea, very, very important. By I think it's 1990, I want to say. I can't remember the exact year when the first telefiber optic cable was laid across the ocean, linking the United States to India. But that ended up with obviously the creation of this thing called the internet, and the world has definitely become flatter since then. I don't know if you've ever heard the argument of the flat earthers, but the idea that there's no obstruction to me calling someone in China right now or in India or in Europe. Definitely that's evolved quite a bit since the second industrial revolution. Mass production. You've probably heard of Henry Ford. We don't live that far away from Detroit. Our actual state is way more involved in making automobile parts than you realize. Maybe some of your parents work for Allison Transmissions, or there used to be a lot more car part factories in the Indianapolis area, but there still are quite a few around our state that send products to Detroit to make cars. And so the combustion engine, and then the creation of the assembly line is going to make automobiles way more affordable. And then that subsequently causes people to move around, and you're going to move to places where you have job opportunities. This is a classic example of, if you looked at the election, the blue states were East Coast, West Coast. The red states were primarily in the middle of the country, except for large cities where there are lots of jobs. And, people move to where there are jobs. Um, Recently, Indianapolis has become a kind of a tech hub. I know because my wife works in the SaaS industry, which is software as a service industry. There you go. There's big words Mr. Burnett's dropping. But a lot of people have moved here from California, from various Austin, Texas, Columbus, Ohio, other tech places because there are jobs now. In fact, there were more jobs available before COVID hit in Indianapolis than there were people to perform those jobs. Okay, food for thought. Now, the problem is those jobs require advanced degrees or degrees in certain things that people in Indianapolis and around Indiana don't particularly study that much. Back to the topic here, global industrialization. So Russia tries to hit the put their foot on the gas pedal. We'll talk about it later. It's an epic failure of all sorts, which is why you have a revolution. Canada, I don't know if you've been to Canada. I've been there, actually to Montreal. Canada gets into the Industrial Revolution, but they have this kind of a problem of resources and a lack of major population centers. So it's not as successful as the United States. Mexico, unfortunately, falls into the hands of being influenced by the U.S. primarily at this time. And they have to fight their own battles in the fact that they were attached to Spain for so long. We'll get into that in 2 chapters, I think. And then Japan's a great example. Remember how Japan had been cut off and cut themselves off to only the Dutch? Well, they come back roaring in the second half of the 19th century, and with technology and the little islands that make up Japan are abounding in resources, and they use them pretty quick, which is why they have to create a bigger empire to spread out. So we'll get into that later on too. That's a fun topic. Here's the example of New York City in 1910. Why would I show you this? Well, look at the lights. Look at the difference. If you remember from the picture I showed the other day or yesterday, days are confused. But I mean, this looks quite a bit cleaner. Buildings appear more proper, etc. So you see major changes in a 50-year span. All right. So things that then had to be kind of dealt with. The constitutional question, I put it in quotes because you guys know what constitutions do is they're there to protect the rights of people and limit the power of the government over the people. So it took a while longer in certain places, but by 1848, after those revolutions, that was answered. Now the social question was not answered, and that is when businesses are taking away what you would call sacred rights. Are you allowed to complain? Should you complain? And so things that started appearing, this is what Otto von Bismarck did very well in Germany, was things that they were kind of the model with Great Britain also, of giving social insurance to people. So social insurance is a big, broad thing. From that, if you were taking notes and properly, I would have 3 arrows off of it, because social insurance can mean unemployment insurance or tax, which we pay now. Workers' comp, so you get injured on the job. You get compensation until you can go back to work or for a certain period of time. It also can mean Social Security. So you pay into a system like we do in the United States for, let's say, our whole working career. I've been paying for it since I was 14, 15, that when I turn 66 and a half, I will get paid, a portion or a percentage of what I put in over a period of time until I die. Now that even goes on to other things like working conditions, minimum wage, etc. And this is kind of where you see then the extension of the government. And so when people start to get to vote, like democratization of the political system, so people kind of get to vote, they vote for having bigger governments. The government doesn't vote on its own to get bigger usually. It's the people that demand it, that want more protection or more rights. All right. So some of these ideas of reform, you're going to look at them a little bit more tomorrow. In the early 1800s, this is before the Communist Manifesto was produced. Bentham and Jeremy Bentham came up with the idea of utilitarianism. Basically, three foundations of utilitarianism are happiness is the only thing that is like a tangible thing, and that you should always do what's trying to make you happy, and the government should only be functioning to make you happy, and it should be there for all people, not just trying to make one class of people like rich people or middle class or poor people happy, but all people. And so obviously that idea came out of England in response to the factory system and the awful conditions and awful living conditions. So then as more people complained and as companies began to realize that they can abuse their workers to squeeze profits, what you get is then socialism, which was really kind of by Friedrich Engels and Karl Marx in their book called The Communist Manifesto. They coined the term socialism as a step in the process of creating a communist state. Okay. So that term is thrown out quite a bit nowadays, and we can talk about it more. But socialism was only meant to be a step in the direction of a communist state. Okay. Now, we talk about like famous books in history. Okay. The Bible is the most produced book in history. The second most produced book in history is Mao's Little Red Book, which we'll talk about when we get into the communist revolution in China. The third most produced book in history is the Quran. The fourth most produced, I believe, is the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. All right. And you're going to be reading portions of it tomorrow and maybe watching a little bit of a video. So I'm not going to spoil it too much. But communism is a violent overthrow of whoever's in charge. He uses the term the bourgeoisie, but I don't want you to get it confused because it doesn't refer to the bourgeoisie in France in the second or in the third estate. It refers to people who own the capital, who have the money, and the ones that basically don't respect the laborers, the common people. All right. So that's kind of the step in that direction. Political parties then come about, obviously, and the Methodist Church in the mid 1800s jumps in also. And they branched off of the Anglican Church as a means to, like, their goal was to create schools and soup kitchens and different things like that to help people. And so there's a lot of examples in England in Great Britain of people going to Methodist schools, and it was very, very, very strict. In some cases, there was child abuse, etc. But their original intent was to help people. All right, so towards the end of as we get closer to World War I in 1900, labor unions came about. Okay, at first, labor unions and strikes and collective bargaining, which you probably don't know. I didn't even know what collective bargaining was till probably 5 years ago. But that means that like representatives of the laborers get to work with the owners or the bosses. So in the instance of school, some of our teachers get to work with our principal and HR director to try to have a agreement on our contract. That's called collective bargaining. That was not allowed, and workers were not allowed to have a voice. In Britain in 1799, they outlawed labor unions. And this was similar in Germany and the United States also, because they didn't want workers to unite. And then as communism became more of a threat, you start to see the labor unions permissible. And so 1825 Combination Acts, labor unions are legal in Britain. The Factory Act of 1833 outlawed child labor. The Mine Act of 1842 said that women and children were not allowed to work underground anymore in the mines. So nowadays, if you think about our own policy in the state that we live in, if you want to work and you're under, I think it's 18, you have to get a piece of paper from school basically saying that you go to school and you're not skipping school or whatnot, something to that extent, in order to have a job. So you see where it's gone. It's been processes to that. Democratic reforms, that just means like voting reforms. Okay. The Reform Bill of 1832 in Great Britain, 3% of men got to vote. 3%. That doesn't seem like very much, does it? You can see why people were mad. And one of the movements called the Chartist movement, because a group of laborers wrote down a charter with 6 items saying that they wanted these demands met. And so that's one of the movements that was done in England to try to protest this. 1867, 7% got to vote. 7% of the total population. And then in 1884, you get 14% of the population gets to vote. That does not seem like very many. You are correct. But the U.S. was much better. In 1800, you had to have property and be white to vote. By the mid 1850s, you could vote whether you had property or not. And then the 15th Amendment said that African American men you can't tell a person they cannot, we're not allowed to tell a person they cannot vote because of their race or skin color. But most of you know that Jim Crow laws were then put in place in the southern states and in different places in the Midwest too, that put weird rules on voting so that it was discriminate towards African Americans, anyone of color. All right. Lastly, then, feminist movement. So the feminist movement, I don't know if we talked about it too much. I didn't get into it as deep as I would have in the past, just because it's a bear of a chapter, and I usually take 3 weeks on this. But Mary Wollstonecraft was one of the pioneers of the Enlightenment, and we did read a quote from her. But the Enlightenment movement kind of skipped women. And so 1848 is a big year, I told you, in the history of the world that people don't really remember. The Seneca Falls Conference, though, was held, which Seneca Falls is in upstate New York, where Amelia Pankhurst and that basically women got together for the first time to say that they're going to put an agenda together to try to vote. Okay, that it takes 70 years then for that to stick. English women gained the right to vote in 1918. That's during World War I. And then after World War I in the U.S., women got the right to vote in 1920. All right. And then obviously, women still don't get equal pay to men, even though they make up a larger part of the workforce. And there are more women in colleges than there are men in the United States. All right. I'm not gonna go forever here, but I'm gonna do a little bit of an activity with you now, okay? So I'm gonna stop my share for a second, and here's what we're gonna do. And if you sent a message, yeah, I didn't see it. Okay, you didn't. Good. Let me get out of this. There we go. And I'm gonna put something up on the screen, and I want you. I don't want you to rank this. What I want you to do with this is I want you to tell me of these 5 people that I put on the screen, these 5 occupations, which one you think is most important. Put it in the chat box, okay? Everyone got that? So I'm going to have a slide that has 5 occupations. I want you to tell me which is the most important occupation, okay? And put it in the chat function. Here we go. So I want everybody to vote. The doctor, the garbage collector, the fast food attendant, the teacher, or the insurance salesperson. Got 18 votes. And don't do this to stroke my ego, folks. You don't need to say teacher just because I'm just kidding. It's fine if you did. But all right. So we have insurance, doctor, garbage collector, teacher, doctor, teacher, insurance salesperson, doctor, teacher, doctor, garbage collector, teacher, doctor. All right. Jill, why do you have a garbage collector? Unmute.
Because without garbage collectors, there would just be literal trash everywhere, and you need to have a basic functioning economy for people to be able to learn.
Yeah, you can't be having that garbage all over the place, can you?
No.
All right, good. That's an interesting observation you made there. Victoria White, if you don't mind, could you tell me why you put insurance salesperson?
I put it because I don't know, insurance is probably needed because of all the injuries that people could get from working in the factories.
Okay. Good. Lucy, why did you have insurance? Lucy McJunkins.
I don't know. I thought it might be like a trick question where like what looked like the least important was actually the most important.
Dang, if any of your parents are insurance salesmen, sorry. Lucy just pooped on you. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But yeah, wait. Oh man. Owen, you had garbage collector too. Owen, why?
I said garbage collector because I always feel like kind of low or like kind of overlooked jobs hold the economy together because they're jobs that no one might want to do, but without them, without them, stuff would happen. It's not good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just laughing at Lily Dole's comment here. It's okay. No, you were right, Lucy. I totally tried to mess with everyone on here, and everyone fell into my trap, anyways. So, what's the correct answer? Well, let's go, Vincent. Why did you put doctor?
As a doctor, because I kind of associate they help with health and making sure that the people are, not dying and all that. And I feel like doctor can also kind of be used as a general term for kind of, all right, basically that.
They make a lot of money too, right? Isn't that important?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sam Barker, why do you have teacher?
I have teacher because, well, 1, everybody else picked it and I didn't know. And 2, like education would be important during this
All these
time.
people have to be taught something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I think it was Jill Whitmore who already ruined it, but yes, you're right, Jill. There is not, technically speaking, all of these are equally important, right? If the doctor doesn't have someone to collect their garbage, to flip their burgers, or to teach them how to doctor or give them insurance, they're not going to be able to doctor. And a garbage collector won't be able to collect the garbage without someone flipping the burgers or making the burgers or teaching or in sales or doctor, etc. Right? Does everyone understand that? I'm not. I mean, have I convinced you that communism and socialism are perfect yet? That's a joke. So the question then is, why do we as a society pay one of these way more? A doctor makes way more money than a teacher, a garbage collector, or a fast food attendant. I don't know how much insurance salespeople make. They might make a lot of money. Some of them probably do. Okay, so we pay them on a very different level, but we just agreed that all of them are equally important. Why is that? All right. I got some hand raisers. It looks like Lucy Hiddle was first.
I would say that we pay probably like the doctor the most because they have to go through the most rigorous and probably intense education compared to like a garbage collector because like you don't really need like a bachelor's degree to be a garbage collector, but you need like a medical degree and a bachelor's and like a lot of different other stuff to be a doctor. And I think doctors might put in a lot more time and effort into what they're doing. Like, yeah, a garbage collector could put in a lot of time too, but a doctor you need more information and more knowledge to be a doctor than a garbage collector.
But I don't agree with you because it's still equally important though. Like even if it takes more time, you still have to have someone to flip the burger and collect the garbage.
Yeah, but do you need like 8 years of like medical school to flip a burger?
Depends what kind of burger you want to be flipping.
Okay.
I mean, I don't. I want to hear from someone else. That his last name isn't Hiddle, so I'm sorry, Hannah. I know. Let's go to Lily Dole.
I think it's because there's more like valued skill sets that people value more, they think are better than others. So even though like a fast food attendant they're important, but people don't consider the skill of being able to flip burgers and like making food. They don't value that as much as they value a doctor's work who like checks up people and I guess saves them and stuff.
Correct. Brooke, what do you want to say?
I was gonna say like how it can be sort of stereotypical because like a teacher, like especially back in the day, it was seen to be women, and like how you're saying women don't get as paid as much as men, and how like fast food people normally think of people who aren't like well educated in a sense, even though that they can be. It's just like their path that they choose too.
So you're saying that everyone chooses their path. So like all people that are doctors, like I would have had a chance to be a doctor. No, I came from a poor family. I didn't have a chance to be a doctor. I couldn't afford medical school or any of those fancy schools. I can't get a scholarship. I didn't have parents that taught me how to read. I got another person in here trying to participate on my Zoom call with us. Brooke, you're right. I'm just playing devil's advocate for fun. This is usually where I have a lot of fun in class because it's in society. We as a society realistically rate people and pay people, and it's difficult because some people, maybe you inherit $1 million. You're inherently then going to have more opportunity than the person who inherits debt, okay, or gets $0. And so the question that I usually pose for people when we're doing this lesson then is what's more important to you, liberty or equality? Liberty is freedom. Equality is the state of being equal. If you have complete equality, that means all of these people would make the exact same money too. If you had complete liberty, though, that means that you have a lot of separation, and certain people have certain advantages. And so it's a difficult thing to grasp. Capitalism, which reigned free in the early 1800s, obviously caused a lot of people to suffer. Communism, on the other hand, Karl Marx, we're going to read about this tomorrow, but he said more, his famous quote is something more to the point of, from each according to his ability to each according to his need, which means that you just do what you can do, and everyone in society does what they can do, and everyone can prosper equally, and you don't even have to have a government. Okay. And then socialism, which really isn't a mix of, it's more towards equality than liberty. But what it does is it equals out people, and it equals out, makes society more equal by taxing the wealthy more and giving to the poor, so that you have more of an equal state, but it's not completely equal like communism. Okay, that was a lot. Hannah Hiddle, I feel bad. Do you want to talk? I didn't mean to. It was kind of a joke, but I just want to get someone else involved. Do you want to say anything, Hannah?
No, it's okay.
Okay. We'll get you going on Friday, maybe. Okay. All right. So let's. I'm gonna just have a quick conversation then with you about tomorrow. Tomorrow's a non-Zoom day. Okay. So please don't send me a message asking why there's no Zoom. I'll have it up on Skyward or Canvas, and then I'll have your assignment for tomorrow up by probably, I'd say 2:15, 2:30. So obviously, if you want, that can be quote unquote homework tonight, and then you don't have anything to do tomorrow. That's up to you. I don't care when you do it. Okay. I only graded 2 thesis statements and intro paragraphs. They were Katya and Brooke, and both were great. But if you didn't turn it in, I noticed I only had 34 people turn it in from 2 classes. I need you to practice that. So do that and get it turned in, please, if that's you. On that note, I'm going to leave you a little bit early here. I've got this class ending at 43. So that's 12 minutes that you guys can have on your own. Go to the bathroom, do what you need to do, okay? All right. Thanks, everybody. Good participation today. Everyone stay safe and healthy. We'll see everybody. Oh, yeah. You probably want to start reviewing for your test on Friday, too, okay? Make sure you have your stuff organized on your fancy computers. Okay? All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks a lot. See you.